The anime starts with Osato, a teen at school raining outside. He can't leave due to heavy rain, so waits at the door. He wishes to escape to a fantasy world. Osato finds this thought childish. Students discuss the top 2 students, the student council president and assistant. The president is smart, has taken many courses and excels. Her assistant is outstanding, energetic and handsome. Or not, and we see students talking about the 2 early in school. They walk down the hallway, the president and her assistant. The president excels in all subjects. Her assistant is outstanding and energetic. Later, Osato sits by the school door, unable to leave due to rain. The president asks about an umbrella. Surprised, Osato admits he didn't bring one. She says all students must leave. Nervous, Osato says he was about to leave, but it's raining. The president tells him he can't go out. It would harm the council's reputation. Osato sits by the school door, missing his umbrella. The president notices and asks if he has one. Osato admits he didn't bring it. She explains all students must leave now. Osato says he was about to leave. The president insists he can't go out like that. Just then, her assistant Kazumi offers his umbrella. Suzumi is surprised. Kazumi knows Osato. Kazumi, a popular student, is kind, not arrogant. He gives Osato the umbrella and they leave together. Something about the rain like this will damage the reputation of the student council. Kazumi arrives and offers his umbrella to Osato, surprising Suzumi, who asks how he knows Osato. Kazumi says they're classmates. Osato is shocked that popular students know him, realizing Kazumi is kind. Suddenly, only Osato hears a loud ringing. A magical circle appears, transporting them to another world. They wake up before a king and his court. Kazumi checks on nervous Osato, asking, "Where are we? Is this another world? Who are these people?" Suzumi confirms, "This is another world." The king then addresses them, acknowledging their confusion. But all the way, Osato is still shocked that he's walking with the 2 most famous students in school, thinking that all the other students will definitely be jealous of him. Suddenly, he hears a loud ringing sound coming from everywhere. He asks Kazumi about the sound, but Kazumi doesn't hear anything. At that moment, a glowing magical circle appears beneath them and it transports them to another world. The 3 wake up before the king. Kazumi checks on Osato, asking, "Where are we? Is this another world? Who are these people?" Suzumi confirms, "Yes, this is another world." The king apologizes for their sudden arrival. Kazumi demands, "Who are you? What have you done to us?" The king, introducing himself as the ruler of Linger, explains they were summoned to fight the monster king and protect the human world. Kazumi retorts, "We're not interested in being heroes. How dare you summon us without consent? Take us back." The king apologizes, explaining they can't return. Kazumi, feeling very angry, asks, "Who are you and what have you done to us?" The king tries to calm him down and introduces himself as the king of the kingdom of Linger. We notice that Kazumi is very excited and not worried at all, unlike Osato, who is trying to understand the situation. The king explains that he summoned them here to be the heroes who will fight the monster king and defend the human world from invasion. Kazumi gets really angry and says, "What does this have to do with us? We're not interested in being heroes or dealing with a monster king. How dare you summon us without our consent? Take us back to our world right now." The king apologizes but explains that it's impossible because summoning heroes only works one way, meaning they can't return to their world again. The heroes survive the monster king. Kazumi is upset, but Osato calms him. The king arrives, bows, and offers to help them return home, asking for their help. Kazumi questions their hero status. Wilsey explains the summoning circle brings exceptional people, proven by ringing bells. Osato, who heard nothing, realizes he was accidentally involved. Wilsey. Suzumi questions why the king calls them heroes. Wilsey explains the summoning circle brings exceptional beings from other worlds. Osato, feeling left out, admits he heard nothing. Wilsey takes them to the lab to assess their magic with a crystal ball. Suzumi, eager, is first. She's aligned with thunder magic and has abundant mana. Kazumi follows, discovering his rare light magic. Osato, anxious, sees the crystal turn green, causing relief except for Wilsey, who grows worried. She rushes to the king, emphasizing Osato's green crystal. Wilsey takes them to the lab to measure their magical abilities with a crystal ball. They start with Suzumi, who is excited. Suzumi is aligned with thunder magic and has a lot of mana. Next is Kazumi, who discovers he is aligned with light magic. Kazumi is surprised and learns that light magic is rare and powerful. Osato is nervous. The crystal shows green for him, which relieves everyone except Wilsey, who becomes anxious. She rushes Osato to the king, explaining Suzumi and Kazumi's abilities, but emphasizes Osato's green crystal. Everyone is shocked as Wilsey reveals Osato is aligned with the rarest magic, but the king stops her from naming it. Now it's Osato's turn and he's nervous. The crystal shows green for him, relieving everyone except Wilsey, who is anxious. She takes Osato to the king, saying Suzumi and Kazumi have magic, but Osato's green crystal is key. Everyone is shocked and tense as Wilsey explains Osato is aligned with rare magic and about to reveal its name. The king stops her from naming it. Osato's companions are tense, not understanding the situation. The king tells Wilsey to hide Osato away from the palace, deciding to send him to town. Suddenly a powerful woman enters, terrifying everyone. She asks the king about the hero's summoning. The king responds, "Rose, what are you doing here? I thought..." The king quickly stops her from saying the name. Osato is tense. The king tells Wilsey to hide Osato. A powerful woman enters. She asks about the heroes. "Rose, what are you doing here? I thought you took the day off." "You're the hero, right?" Osato, terrified, steps back. "No, he's not the hero. He came by mistake." Rose introduces herself to Osato. Rose heads to the heroes. "Osato, I want to know what this green color means in magic." Everyone panics as Rose hears him. "Did you say green?" Rose ignores the king. The king explains, "No, he's not the hero. He came here by mistake." Rose introduces herself as the rescue team leader. Wilsey says the heroes are in the crystal ballroom. The king discusses Osato, saying, "Osato, I want to know what this green color means in magic." Rose hears him and asks, "Did you say green?" Rose asks Osato and introduces herself as the rescue leader. Wilsey tries to pull her away from Osato, telling her the heroes are in the crystal ballroom. Rose then asks the king for permission and heads to the heroes. The king discusses Osato's fate. "Osato, I also want to know what this green color indicates magically." Everyone panics and Rose is still there, listening. She asks him, "Green?" Then she requests Osato and the king becomes very tense, ordering Wilsey to remove Osato. Wilsey magically sneaks Osato out of the castle and she gets excited. So she asks the king to borrow Osato, and the king becomes very tense, ordering Wilsey to get Osato out of the palace immediately. Wilsey uses her magic to quickly sneak Osato out of the castle, and she gets excited. Rose grabs Kusasa, saying she'll make him a healing magic user. Welsi tells Suzumi and Kazumi about Kusasa. They're worried, but Welsi reassures them he's fine and join the rescue team. Rose will train Kusasa. In the evening, Rose sits with Kusasa, explaining he's a healing magic user. She tells him this is his new home and introduces the team. Tong, Mel, Ilk, Jamal, and Gord. Rose scolds Tong for scaring Kusasa and explains these are her followers, but they don't use healing magic. The healing magic users are on other missions. Training starts tomorrow. The first day ends, and Kusasa wakes up. In the evening, Rose tells Kusasa he's a healing magic user, which is why the rescue team brought him. She says this house is now his home and introduces the team. Tong, Mel, Ilk, Jamal, and Gord, who scare Kusasa. Rose scolds Tong and explains her followers don't use healing magic as those members are on missions. Training starts tomorrow. Kusasa wakes, hoping it was a dream. Ilk says he has guests, Suzumi and Kazumi, who check on him. He reassures them he's fine, though training. Kusasa remains terrified. Rose scolds Tong for scaring him and explains these are her followers. She informs him that training will start tomorrow. The first day passes and Kusasa wakes up in the morning. Ilk comes to inform him that he has guests, so Kusasa goes out to see them. He reassures them that he is fine. They say their goodbyes and Rose comes in and gives Kusasa a notebook. They enter the house and she informs him that training will start right after breakfast. During training, Kusasa finds it easy. Rose explains that he needs to learn how to channel mana. Rose takes him to the library to read a book. Ilk informs Kusasa of guests, so he meets Suzumi and Kazumi. Kusasa assures them he's fine. Training will be tough. They leave, and Rose gives Kusasa a notebook for daily training notes. She says training starts after breakfast. Kusasa recalls his teammates' warnings but finds it easy. Rose asks if he feels energy. He feels a surge near his heart. She explains it's mana, and he must channel it. Rose takes him to read a book in the library. She tells him to open it, and he's surprised he can read it. She explains heroes can read any language. She describes the kingdom's geography and borders, showing the nearby monster kingdom. The training was easy. Rose asks if he feels energy. He feels a surge near his heart. It's mana, and he must learn to channel it. Rose takes him to read a book. He doesn't know the language. Kusasa is surprised he can read it. Heroes can read any language. The kingdom's geography and the nearby monster kingdom are described. The book contains vital information. Training involves running, leaving Kusasa exhausted. She tells him, open the book. Kusasa opens it. She explains heroes can read any language. She shows him the nearby monster kingdom, the first target for the Monster King's army. Rose tells him to remember the book. The next day, training involves running. Kusasa runs. On the third day, he runs and falls. Rose yells. She urges him to heal and keep running. On the fourth day, Kusasa trains with the team, continuing to run. That's why this place is the first target for the Monster King's army. Rose makes Kusasa remember the book well because it contains all the information he might need in this world. The next day in training consists of an endurance exercise, which is running. Kusasa runs a lot that day and feels completely exhausted. On the third day, the same routine continues. He runs until he gets a muscle cramp and falls to the ground. Rose yells at him asking, "Who told you to stop?" He tells her that his legs hurt a lot and he has no energy left to keep going. She urges him to heal quickly and to keep running. On the fourth day, Kusasa starts training with the other team members, and he continues to run on the fifth and sixth days as well. Until he generates healing energy, Rose hits him if he stops running. By the 9th day, he heals himself and understands healing magic. He runs without tiring, so Rose increases the difficulty. Rose switches to push-ups. Katsudo tires after 824 push-ups but continues using healing magic. Rose asks why he trains so hard, surprising Katsuto. She explains it's to escape quickly in battles and save friends. Katsuto adapts to the tough training. Rose makes exercises harder, but he adapts. He finds Tong has eaten his food, gets angry, and attacks, but Tong escapes. Suzumi and Kazumi visit. Rose shifts training to push-ups. Katsuto, exhausted after 824 push-ups, continues. Rose asks why train hard. She explains it's escape quickly in battles, save friends. Days pass. Katsuto adapts to tough training. Rose intensifies exercises, adjusts. After training, finds Tong eaten meal, gets angry, attacks. Tong escapes. On 21st day, Suzumi and Kazumi visit. Amazed by Katsuto's strength doing push-ups, giant rock. Rose teases weak, train harder. As days pass, Katsuto adapts to tough training. After training, he finds Tong ate his meal, gets angry, and attacks, but Tong escapes. Suzumi and Kazumi visit, amazed by Katsuto's strength as he does push-ups with a giant rock and Rose on top. Rose teases him about being weak and adds another rock. Night arrives, scolding Rose for being tough on Katsuto. Rose retorts, calling Gels an old man and claiming her training is better. She praises Katsuto. Katsuto learns Gels is the royal army leader and strongest knight. Katsuto shows his strength by doing push-ups with a rock and Rose on top. Night arrives with Suzumi and Kazumi, scolding Rose for being harsh. Rose dismisses him, saying she's training Katsuto as her right-hand man. She praises Katsuto and allows a... Night is with Suzumi and Kazumi, yelling at Rose for being tough on Katsuto, saying he has a bright future. Rose tells Gels to stay away, calling his training useless, but she's training Katsuto to be her right-hand man. She praises Katsuto. They meet Princess Celia, who offers cake. Katsuto enjoys it and asks Kazumi about training. Kazumi says today's training is lighter. Their training is going well, learning fencing from Gels and magic from Welsi. They meet Princess Celia, who offers cake to Katsuto. Katsuto asks Kazumi, do you train like this daily? Their training is going well, learning fencing from Gels and magic from Welsi. Kazumi asks Katsuto about adapting, and he admits he initially wanted to escape, but now enjoys the training and time with the team. Tong arrives with Katsuto's lunch, and they argue playfully. The next day, Rose tells Katsuto to get ready to go out, making him anxious. Kazumi asks Katsuto about his ability to adapt to the new situation, and Katsuto replies that at first he wanted to escape, but now everything is completely different, and he really enjoys the training and the time spent with the rescue team. After they check on each other, they keep laughing and joking until Tong shows up with Katsuto's food, telling him he brought him lunch. Katsuto gets into a fight with him, saying, "So you're being nice now? That's the least you could do after what you did to me yesterday." Tong replies, "You still remember that? Your heart is completely black." They start to argue, and from this scene, the friends realize that Katsuto has adapted to life here, and this is now his new life. The next day, Rose calls out to Katsuto, telling him to get ready to go out. He doesn't understand what's happening and says to the team, "Looks like it's time to go," which makes Katsuto even more anxious. He drinks from the river in the middle of the jungle, and the next day he feels a lot of pain in his stomach. He keeps trying to heal his stomach with healing magic until he feels better. The rabbit understands that Asate is suffering because of the polluted water, so he takes him to a small lake that is clean and safe. But suddenly Asate is surprised to see the rabbit terrified and running to hide in a tree. Asate doesn't understand what's happening, but he hides with the rabbit up in the tree and notices that a monster is approaching the area, and this monster is very dangerous. Even the rabbit is terrified, though he wasn't afraid of the bears. A giant white snake appears, terrifying Asate and the rabbit. Asate has never encountered such a creature. Despite all the books he's read, he decides to be cautious and stay away from the snake. Asate returns to watching the bears and feels like he's with a harmless family, but he must hunt the grizzly bear to go home. Asate watches the bears. He must hunt the grizzly, so he rests today. Heavy rain delays him the next day. He finds the parent bears dead. A giant snake killed them. The little bear tries to wake its mother, but it's futile and cries. Asate vows revenge on the snake. Kazumi and Suzumi ask about Asate. Asate's been training in the jungle for 10 days. But he is shocked by a horrific scene. The father and mother bear are gruesomely dead and soaked in blood. Asate understands from the wounds that the giant snake is the one that killed them, and it did it for fun, not for food at all. At that moment, the little bear appears from the wreckage and runs to its mother to wake her up, but of course it's useless and it starts to cry. Asate is deeply affected by the sight and decides to take revenge on the giant snake for the bears and also to take back his chance. The lizard seeks revenge for his family. Kazumi and Suzumi ask Tong about Asate, who has been training in the jungle for 10 days. They worry he might be in danger. Tong says the leader decides, but the leader is absent, so no one knows. The friends leave, and Suzumi questions Kazumi's concern for Asate. He finds it suspicious. She reassures him. Tong says the leader decides everything, not them, so no one knows the situation. The friends leave, and Suzumi asks Kazumi why he's worried about Asate. Since Rosia assigned the task, it should be safe and they shouldn't worry. She trusts Asate too. We return to Asate preparing a wooden spear for the fight. He asks the rabbit to take him to the snake and then run away. Asate and the rabbit reach the snake's place and see the little bear confronting the giant snake. He charges at the snake, but it dodges and attacks fiercely. Asate evades and strikes its eye with his spear. He prepares a wooden spear to use in the fight and asks the rabbit to take him to the snake's location and then run away afterward. Asate and the rabbit head to the snake's place, and as soon as they arrive, he is shocked to see the little bear confronting the giant snake. He also notices the snake's amazing strength and becomes very tense, but he calms himself down, thinking that this snake can't be more dangerous than Roz. He charges at the snake with all his might, but the snake easily dodges and attacks Asate fiercely, but he manages to evade the attack and strikes it in the eye with his spear. The attack hits the snake in its eye. The snake is in a lot of pain and attacks Asate again, but Asate takes advantage of the snake's injured eye, and she takes Roz to the outside world beyond the kingdom's borders. Asate asks her where they are going, and she tells him to be quiet and follow her, showing him a scary forest called the Dark Linger Forest. And she explains to him that this forest is full of monsters and very dangerous, and she orders him not to return until he hunts the big bear. Asate still objects because of the danger of the mission, so she grabs him and throws him right in the middle of the forest. Asate falls from the sky and is very scared, almost dying in a pitiful way. The leader threw him, but he used his backpack and magic to land safely. Scared of facing a grizzly bear, he reassures himself. The bear appears as a shield. He falls on it and also uses healing magic to reduce the damage of hitting the ground, but thank God he lands on the ground unharmed. He starts to think that he has to begin the mission that Roz gave him, but when he remembers that the mission is to confront the grizzly bear, he gets really scared. However, he encourages himself and says, "What's the big deal? It's just a bear." At that moment, the bear appears in front of him, and it's much bigger than he expected, so Asate quickly runs away, but the bear chases him fiercely. Fierceness and fear take over him. He recalls Roz's training and struggles. He spots 2 more blue grizzlies and flees. 3 against 1? Not fair. He jumps in, escaping. It's not harder than his struggles with Roz, but as soon as he turns around, he sees 2 more blue grizzly bears, so he quickly runs away, saying, 3 against 1? That's not manly, guys. He hears the sound of rushing waterfall water, so he rushes towards it and jumps in, escaping from the bears. The sound of the waterfall rushes, so he quickly heads towards it and jumps in, escaping from the bears. After the bears leave, Asate comes out of the water as evening falls, and he starts to check his resources. He has a knife and some food, and he searches for something to start a fire. So he eats and considers Roz's difficult mission. Exhausted, he falls asleep, postponing thoughts to tomorrow. Difficulty of the task. Roz gave it to him, but he fell asleep because of exhaustion and decided to think about the mission tomorrow. In the morning, he marks a tree and explores. He looks for bear claw marks and finds evidence. Suspecting a den, he hears a rustle, tenses, but it's a rabbit. Asate talks to it, surprised it responds. He heals it and continues his mission, but the rabbit follows. In the area, he suspects that the rabbit's nest is nearby, but at that moment, he hears a rustling sound from the trees, which makes him very tense and prepares for a fight. Suddenly, a cute rabbit appears, and it turns out to be injured, so Asate talks to the rabbit. Surprised that the rabbit understands him, Asate uses healing magic on it and continues his mission. The rabbit follows him. Asate asks the rabbit if it knows where the big grizzly bear is. After wandering around the forest for a while, Asate gets tired of wandering without any results, so he asks the rabbit if it knows where the big grizzly bear is. And indeed, the rabbit knows the place and takes Asate to the grizzly bear's den. And he sees that this group of bears is actually a family of hers, and he sees the mother bear and her cub. And with that, he completes his mission for today. He goes back to his camping tree, and days pass as he continues to observe the group of bears from a distance. To understand their way of life, he finds the right moment to confront the huge grizzly bear. But Asate adapts to living in the forest and finds the situation beautiful and peaceful. However, as time goes on, he runs out of resources. I need help. Asate is injured when the snake attacks, surprising him as it bites his arm. He quickly uses healing magic, but the snake retaliates and he feels the poison. He heals and, with the bear, defeats the snake. They become friends, and Asate considers treating the bear's wounds, but his mana is low, so he can only heal himself. Suddenly, the snake revives and attacks again. Roz appears, defeating the snake with a blow. Asate is astonished. She says the rabbit Kroko informed her. Asate learns Kroko is her pet. She reveals the snake pretended to gain his trust but didn't expect the monster. Asate befriends the bear but can't heal it due to low mana. The snake revives, but Roz arrives and defeats it. Asate is surprised. She explains her pet rabbit, Kroko, informed her. She reveals the snake was deceiving Asate. The monster is from the Monster King's army. Roz didn't expect Asate to hunt the bear. Asate is angry, but Roz intended for him to gain experience. Asate is astonished and asks why she is there. She tells him the rabbit told her where he was. Asate learns the rabbit Kroko is her pet. She asked him to watch Asate in the forest. Asate says the rabbit came injured. She says the rabbit pretended to gain trust and reveals she was ready to intervene but didn't expect the monster. Asate asks if she knows it and she says it belongs to the Monster King's army defeated in the last invasion and fled to the forest. She says she never expected him to hunt the bear, as it's too strong for even a unit of soldiers. Asate angrily says he wanted to kill it himself. She says she wanted him to gain experience, but he was better than expected and defeated the giant snake. Asate asks her if she knows it, and she replies, this monster belongs to the Monster King's army and was defeated in the last invasion, so it fled to the forest. She explains that from the beginning she wasn't expecting him to hunt the bear because the bear is so strong that an entire unit of soldiers wouldn't be able to take it down. Asate gets angry and tells her he wanted to kill it alone. She responds she wanted him to gain experience only, but he was better than expected and defeated the giant snake. The bear sees Asate is upset and challenges her. Rose calms Asate and tells him he looks as expected. She tells the little bear she will take him with them, and the bear is excited to join Asate. Rose carries them on her back and takes them out of the forest. Defeats the giant snake. The bear sees Asate upset with Rose and challenges her. Rose calms Asate, saying he looks as expected, and invites the bear to join. Excited, the bear goes with Asate. Rose carries them out of the forest. She tells Asate he's ready to stand with her in battles, praising his potential. She warns him the Monster King's army will soon attack. Surprised, she tells Asate that he is now qualified to stand with her in battles, even though he doesn't have the basics, but he still has the potential to join her. She praises him a bit and informs him that the Monster King's army will attack the kingdom very soon. Asate is surprised and asks her if the rescue team will also participate in the fighting. She replies that they will indeed participate, and in fact she and Asate will be on the front lines to treat the injured. Asate gets anxious at the thought of being at the front and asks her where Tongo and the rest of the team will be at that time. Rose reassures him that there will be 2 other healers joining them in the fight. Asate becomes very tense and doubts his own abilities, trying to explain to her that he still isn't ready for this task. Rose comforts him, saying that there is still time for him to strengthen his resolve and prepare himself for the next phase. The scene then shifts to the Monster King, who is asking his army leader Amila about the preparations for the invasion of the kingdom. Everything is fine. We confirm that everything is fine. The units are ready to start the invasion under the army's command, and they expect impressive results, which is victory for sure. Amila heads out after her meeting with the king and meets the Monster King's doctor, who is bothering her due to the pressure from her meeting with the Monster King. She tells him to focus on his tasks instead of getting caught up in unnecessary things. He reassures her that everything is running smoothly and that he just finished an amazing experiment in producing a breed of cursed monsters. He asks her to see it, so Amila goes with him and finds a giant poisonous monster. The doctor explains the monster has sharp fangs. Amila sees the doctor made it in the last war. He says he did, but the monster escaped in battle, injured by night sigils, and this new monster is much stronger than the old one. They realize stronger opponents exist than sigils. She confirms they cause problems by taking the injured for treatment. Their leader, a fierce fighter, moves swiftly, healing others. She reassures him, planning to send the Black Knight to lead. The priest refuses the rabbit due to a pass trick. The biggest problem is their leader, because she is a very fierce fighter and moves very quickly in battle from one place to another and treats everyone with her amazing healing ability. So the doctor asks her about her intentions in the battle, which is satisfactory because she has become the general commander of the army, meaning she will not be able to kill herself. So she reassures him that she does not analyze this and that she will send the Black Knight to lead the forces in the battle. And we go back to his cats after he returns home, and he is very happy to be back in his bed again, to the point that Tong's annoying snoring is not bothering him. After he relaxes, he goes to his bear and wakes him up and feeds him fruits. The bear flies with joy and the carnation comes to his cats to eat him. But his cats refuse to eat him because he tricked him in the forest, but the carnation takes advantage of his kindness until he forces his cats to eat him too. He names his bear Bloran. Rose asks if that's the bear's name. He confirms, saying it's from the blue bear species. Rose says it doesn't matter. She got permission from the king to keep him, and he's with us, but we need to use him. The bear hides, scared. The priest asks what she wants Bloran to do. Rose dresses the priest in stone armor and carries the bear. The priest asks why he's carrying him. Rose explains it's part. The stone armor is also carried by the bear, surprising his priest. I understand you want us to run together, but why am I carrying him? It's part of new training, seeing the bear as someone to rescue. Tong suddenly attacks him. He dodges, and the division members rush him, but he avoids them. What are you doing? Have you all gone crazy? They're ambushing him, attacking in new ways. This continues for hours until he's exhausted. He knows he can't keep this up for more than half a day. This is his battlefield limit, and fear, tension, fatigue, and impatience drain energy. He asks them, "What are you doing? Have you all gone crazy or what?" They realize they are trying to ambush him on the battlefield, attacking him in new ways every time. This continues for more than 4 hours until he gets exhausted and feels like he's about to collapse from fatigue. He understands that he can't keep this up for more than half a day. Then Rose comes and explains that this is also his limit on the battlefield, and that fear, tension, fatigue, and lack of patience are the main factors that drain energy. So Asate asks her about how to solve this problem right now, and she helps him with her magic, explaining that the only solution is to get used to this situation. She gives him a new exercise, which is running around the city while being aware of the bear. Asate sets off to train, and we notice the people's tension due to the bear's presence, but he reassures them when they learn that Asate is from the rescue team. Blorin is hungry and points to fruit, but Asate has no money. He asks why people are calm despite a wild bear. She says it's due to his rescue team clothes. Asate nods, promises to buy fruit next time. The vendor gives an apple, Blorin eats it. Asate visits Suzumi and Kazumi near the castle. He notices someone running behind and calls out, but Asate is focused on the castle and doesn't hear. The man, tired, hears Asate when he falls. They check him. The man says he admires the leader, greeting his younger teammate. Asate is surprised, says he's the younger teammate. The man says, I'm your leader, Orya, a healer. They talk. Orya praises Asate for keeping up. Asate decides to visit Suzumi and Kazumi. On the way, he spots someone running after him. The man is already tired from running, but finally hears Asate when he falls. They check if he is okay and step aside. The man introduces himself as Orja, a healer in the rescue team. Orja tells Asate it's amazing he has kept up with the leader's training. Asate learns Orja is a healer but can't heal himself. They ask if he's okay and step aside. They inquire about the guy seeking his attention. The man says it was due to admiration for the leader, greeting his younger teammate. Asate is surprised, saying, I'm your younger teammate. The man responds, I'm your leader, Orya, a healer. They continue talking. Orya tells him it's amazing he's kept up with the leader's training. Orya mentions he and his sister couldn't handle the leader's training. Asate is surprised, Orya, and he and his sister couldn't handle the leader's training at all. Asate is surprised that Orya is also a healer. Orya replies that she is an amazing healer and 5 years younger than him. They run a clinic in the city and use healing magic to treat civilians. Asate is astonished that Orya uses healing magic, especially since he just saw him struggling to keep up while running after him. Orya informs him that he is a healer but unfortunately can't heal himself. Asate asks Orya about healing magic types. Orya confirms many exist. Asate asks about the battlefield. Orya says Tong and others move the wounded back for treatment. Asate mentions Rose on the front lines. Asate lacks confidence in the mission. Orya reassures him. Asate says goodbye to return to the clinic before his sister gets upset. To treat them quickly, Asate tells him that Rose said he would be with her on the front lines, which shocks Orya. Asate admits that he has no confidence in his abilities for this mission at all. Orya tries to help him understand the value of the mission he will undertake with Rose, emphasizing that he will be a huge help to the forces because he will save the knights who are injured and waiting for death on the battlefield. He reassures Asate that the leader surely chose him for a reason, as he is worthy of this task. Asate then says goodbye to Orya because he needs to return to the clinic quickly before his sister gets upset. I need to get back to the clinic quickly before I mess things up. Asate returns to training and they say their goodbyes. At that moment, Ororo and her sister Orja arrive and scold him for leaving the work to the lion alone and running away from it. He tells her that he met someone interesting and that she will definitely see him soon. We see Asate arriving at the castle and asking for permission to enter with Blorin. The guard says to him, You're Asate from the rescue team, right? You can enter with the bear. Asate thanks her and walks past the knights training to Suzumi's area. Suzumi, surprised by the bear, asks about it. Asate introduces the little blue bear and shares its story. Suzumi, eager to touch its soft fur, asks to pet it. Asate agrees, but the bear pulls away, worrying him. Asate talks with Suzumi, who asks if he came to see her. He says, yes, to visit you and Kazumi. Kazumi, with the knights, asks Sigis about the Monster King's army. As she reaches out, the bear pulls away, worrying Asate. He suggests calling the bear by its first name, but it doesn't help. Asate talks with Suzumi, confirming he came to see her and Kazumi. Suzumi says Kazumi is away with Sigis, gaining experience. Kazumi asks Sigis if the monster... She tells him Kazumi isn't here. He's gaining experience. Kazumi asks Sigis if the Monster King's army will attack soon. Sigis is confident they will. But with Yu and Suzumi, morale is high. They encounter wild dogs and Kazumi fights them. Back in Asate, Suzumi reassures Asate about Kazumi's return. They spend time together before Asate resumes training. In the evening, Rose asks Asate about his training. Asate assures her it's better now, and he's determined to strengthen his resolve after the giant snake fight. He needs to prepare for the upcoming war and won't let anyone down. Kazumi and the knights fend off wild dogs. Asate talks with Suzumi, worried about Kazumi. Suzumi reassures him Kazumi will return soon and it will be her turn to gain experience. They spend time together and Asate continues training. In the evening, Rose asks if Asate is used to training. He reassures her things are better and he's determined after... Rose asks Asate if he's used to training. It's better and he's determined after the snake fight. Prepare for the Monster King's army. Get ready for their mission. The king summoned him for training with Suzumi. Why not Kazumi? The king wanted her with Kazumi, but she refused. Can't refuse again. He'll be their healer, advising not to overexert. Rose smiles at Asate's thoughts and tells him to get ready because they will be going out soon to rescue people. She encourages him to keep thinking like that all the time. He agrees and feels for the first time that he is part of the rescue team. In the morning, Rose wakes him up and tells him to get ready because the king has summoned him to join the training with the hero Suzumi outside the castle today. So they set off on their way to Suzumi's location, and Asate asks Rose why he is going with Suzumi now when he didn't go with Kazumi. Rose explains that the king had asked her at that time to go with Kazumi, but she refused because he had just returned from his training in the forest. Unfortunately, she can't refuse the king's request again. Rose informs him that he will be their healer, but only in certain situations, so he shouldn't overexert himself in the 3 days he will spend with them. We see Suzumi waiting for Asate with excitement as usual, and she is very happy. She introduces him to the rest of the team, Orko the knight and Korn the sorceress. Asate notices that he has met Orko before, and Orko mentions that he was mostly working as a guard at the castle gate. Rose advises Suzumi to be very cautious and not to always rely on Asate's healing magic because it's not strong enough to handle all injuries. She bids them farewell and leaves. The scene then shifts to Kazumi, Kazumi trains hard as soon as he returns from his training in the forest, and Princess Celia worries about him, advising him to rest since he just came back from a very tough training session. She bids him farewell and goes back to her room. We see Kasata, Suzumi, and the team heading to the dark forest. Suzumi tells Kasata that Kazumi returned extremely exhausted from training, but was very happy and enjoyed gaining experience and defeating a large group of monsters. Kasata thinks they're heading to the dark forest. Bloren sleeps on Kasata's back and Suzumi tries to pat him. Bloren wakes up and he's dazed and stumbles. Suzumi offers to carry Bloren like Kasata. Bloren climbs on but falls off and Kasata helps him. Suddenly bandits appear demanding supplies. The team refuses and Kasata feels they're not scary. Suzumi attacks with lightning, defeating the bandits. Suzumi offers to carry Bloren. Bloren climbs on but falls. Villains demand supplies, threatening harm. The team refuses, and Kasata reassures Suzumi, noting the bandits aren't as scary as the rescue team. Suzumi is excited, while Bloren is scared but encouraged. Suzumi attacks with lightning magic, impressing Kasata. The situation is stable until wild monsters attack. Bloren confronts them. The team refuses, and Kasata finds the bandits not scary, unlike the rescue team. He reassures Suzumi, who's excited. Bloren sees the thieves, gets scared, and thinks of fleeing, but their leader encourages him as he's still a child. Suzumi attacks with lightning magic, blowing them away, and Kasata cheers her. Things are fine until wild monsters attack from the forest. Bloren stands up to them, but Suzumi is in... The situation is stable until wild monsters attack. Bloren confronts them, but when Suzumi is in danger, Kasata saves her, and they fall into a waterfall. Kasata treats Suzumi's wound and warns of fierce monsters nearby. He suggests finding a campsite. Suzumi asks about camping, and Kasata recalls a tree but realizes Suzumi can't climb. He finds a cave for the night. As evening sets, Kasata sets up camp, and Suzumi uses lightning magic to catch fish. He warns her of monsters and says they must camp due to darkness and bad weather. He finds a cave. Kasata sets up camp and Suzumi uses magic to catch fish and light the area. Toxic monkeys appear. Kasata warns her, but Suzumi gets poisoned. Kasata heals her. News reaches the castle, worrying Kazumi. He asks the king about a search party, and the king promises one in the morning. Kazumi wants to search immediately. He finds a cave to camp. As evening falls, Kasata sets up camp and Suzumi uses lightning magic to catch fish. Toxic monkeys appear. Suzumi touches one and gets poisoned. Kasata heals her. News reaches the castle that they are missing, and Kazumi is worried. He asks the king about a search party. The king assures it will be sent in the morning, but Kazumi wants to search immediately. But Kasata warns her not to touch it because of its poison. However, despite that, Suzumi touches it anyway and gets poisoned. Kasata treats her with healing magic. Meanwhile, news reaches the castle that Kasata and Suzumi are missing in the forest, and Kazumi becomes very worried about them. He asks the king if he has sent a group to search for them, and the king replies that he will definitely send one early in the morning. However, Kazumi is overwhelmed with worry and wants to go look for them right now. Rozo reassures him that Suzumi is definitely with Asate, and as long as she is with Asate, both of them will be safe. We return to Asate and Suzumi after they have eaten, and they talk to each other about their past lives and their fears in life. Then and now, both love this new world more than their real one. Freed from constraints and evolved into better characters, they decide to save this world from monsters. In the morning, they explore the forest to return to the team and hear rustling among the trees. Bloren appears, runs to Asate joyfully, and the team arrives, exhausted from searching. In the morning, they move to explore the forest and return to the rest of the team. On the way, they hear a rustling sound among the trees. But then Bloren shows up and runs joyfully to Asate, and the rest of the team arrives looking exhausted from searching for them. Asate treats their injuries and returns to the castle with Suzumi. The king wants to check on them. Suzumi's field training will be postponed for a while. The king wants to check on them. The king asks Asate about his situation in training with the rescue team, and Asate gets nervous about the question, especially with Rozo present, but he replies that everything is fine. Rozo smiles, and the king tells them that Suzumi's field training will be postponed for a while and asks them to rest now, so Asate leaves. Suzumi is in the king's room. Asate feels anxious with Rozo. Suzumi notices and asks. He explains his concern about their presence and the minister's serious expression, and he sits down after they leave. So Suzumi senses his worry and asks him about the reason. He tells her that he's concerned about their presence in the room after they left, and that the minister's expression also indicates that something serious is going on. At that moment, Kazumi comes running with Celia to check on Asate. Kazumi insisted on searching. Suzumi says, "You're reckless, Kazumi." He was to mention the forest danger, but Suzumi interrupts and they sit where Kazumi shares what happened. Warns of forest danger, Suzumi interrupts. Sit in garden, Kazumi recounts events. Rozo trusts Asate, bids farewell, advises rest. King discusses kingdom with Rozo. Kazumi discusses what happened in the castle. Rozo had a lot of confidence in Asate as she bids farewell to him, Suzumi, Kazumi, and Celia so they can go and rest. We return to the king, who is talking with Rozo and Asate about the situation in the kingdom. And we learn that the Monster King's army is advancing towards the kingdom, and that's the reason for the monsters attacking the forest. So the king orders Asate to inform all units to be ready to deploy the defense forces at any moment along the borders. He asks Rozo to check the locations of the Monster King's army and apologizes to her for the pressure he's putting on her. Rozo declines the king's apology, knowing she's the fastest. She refuses to lead again, haunted by her past failure and the scar it left. The king wants her to lead the army, but she refuses and tells him she's not pure-hearted like he expects and isn't worthy. He sees she's haunted by the last battle, losing her men, and she can't forget that due to the scar over her right eye, a constant reminder. She tells him she formed the rescue team for 2 reasons. And she still can't forget that at all, especially because of the scar over her right eye that will never let her forget what happened. The king tries to comfort her, but she remains unaffected. And she tells him that she formed the rescue team for 2 reasons. The first reason is to save soldiers from battles and reduce the number of casualties. The second reason is to create, she continues, "It will never die." The king looks at her and says that this is something impossible for humans. She replies, "Of course not. Then why is training even there?" And the healing magic, it helps humans seek a cure, and she searches for someone until finding Asate. She praises Asate and asks permission. In the evening, Asate finds Rose's message to deliver another message. Asate asks where Rose is, and he replies she won't return today. The scene shifts to the Monster King's army building a bridge. The Black Knight finds the leader's excitement annoying. A monster doctor checks the bridge. She tells him they'll finish soon. Soldiers report an enemy watching. The leader isn't worried. The invasion will start soon. Rose watches and throws a tree onto the bridge, destroying it. The leader and doctor are shocked, and the leader sees Rose stealing her name in anger. The Black Knight notices the leader's excitement and asks why, noting her enthusiasm is annoying. There's tension between them. A monster doctor checks the bridge construction and says it's fine. She tells him it will be done in a few hours. Then the invasion starts. Soldiers report an enemy watching from the other side. The leader reassures them, saying the invasion will proceed soon regardless. It's Rose watching, and she destroys the bridge. The leader reassures them about the invasion. Rose destroys the bridge, shocking the leader and doctor. The leader sees Rose in anger. Meanwhile, Asate follows Rose's map to deliver a message. He meets Ororo, Orja's sister. Asate learns Orja is treating a patient. We return to Asate as he wanders through the city, following Rose's map to deliver a message. He meets Ororo, Orja's sister, who welcomes him warmly. Both are in the rescue team, and she recognizes him as the new recruit. They introduce themselves, and Asate inquires about Orya, who is treating a patient. Asate observes Orya's impressive healing magic. Afterward, they give Asate the message, and his expression changes upon reading it. Suddenly, they receive a report of injuries in the market, prompting the team to rush and save them using healing magic. They return to the clinic, and Asate bids farewell before heading home. He is very calm and amazed at his ability to use healing magic. After Orya finishes, they hand the message to Asate, whose expression changes upon reading it. They receive a report of market injuries, so the team rushes to save them with healing magic. Back at the clinic, Asate heads home. Ron tells him Rose's message, "Prepare for war." Asate buys fruit, then a girl claims she can see the future, showing him a deadly battle. Shocked, Asate tries to find her but fails. Rose asks what's wrong. He doesn't tell her. She mentions a mission and the Monster King's army building a bridge to invade. So Ron learns that Rose's message was for them to prepare well for war because it is just around the corner. We see Asate on his way home passing by a fruit vendor where he buys the fruit he loves. A girl with small ears stops him and Asate thinks she might be lost or something, but she tells him that she is the only one who can see the future. The girl uses her ability with Asate and shows him a part of the battle with the monsters where many humans will die, including Suzumi and Kazumi at the hands of the Black Knight. Asate is shocked and remains frozen in place for a while. The girl leaves him and runs away, but he quickly regains his senses and tries to chase her to ask about what he saw, but she has disappeared. He goes to ask the gatekeeper about her, but it's no use. Then Rose comes and asks him what's wrong, but he doesn't tell her anything. He asks her where she has been, and she tells him that she was on an exploratory mission in the outskirts of the kingdom and that the Monster King's army is trying to build a bridge to cross into the kingdom. Asata is really anxious, but Rose reassures him that she destroyed the bridge for now, giving them time to prepare for the invasion. They continue their way home, and Asata tells her about what happened with the fox girl, asking if she knows her. Rose replies that she doesn't know much about her, but she appeared in the kingdom 2 years ago after escaping from bandits on her own. What's strange is that she managed to do this when she was only 12 years old. They understand that bandits like to capture children like her because of their rare and beautiful appearance. Asata asks Rose if she can see the future. Rose hesitates. He describes a frightening vision. She mentions rare races with such powers. Rose asks if he's met any. He hasn't. Asata thinks about the girl's vision while Rose reports to the king about delaying the Monster King's army. The king plans to raise the army and informs Suzumi and Kazumi. Asata can't sleep, troubled by the vision and the girl's words about his ability to change it. Doubting himself, he sees lights and finds Kazumi calling him. Asata ponders the girl's power and her vision. Rose then leaves to visit the king, telling him to go home. She gives her report to the king, who thanks her for delaying the Monster King's army. She says it's her duty, but they're rebuilding it now. The king reassures her he'll raise the Monster King's army tomorrow for the country. He orders Suzumi and Kazumi be informed today. Suzumi and Kazumi are summoned to the king's chamber. Asata can't sleep, overwhelmed by the future he saw and the girl's words that he alone can change it. But Asata doubts he can change it. He sees strange lights and finds Kazumi calling him. Asata goes to Kazumi, who tells him about the king's summons and impending war. He orders Suzumi and Kazumi learn of the situation today, then Suzumi and Kazumi are summoned to the king's chamber. We return to Asata, sleepless, overwhelmed by thoughts about the future and the girl's words that only he can change it. But Asata doubts he can change it. He sees strange lights and finds Kazumi calling him. Asata goes to Kazumi, who tells him the king's summons is about war. Kazumi shares his anxiety and fear about the battle, feeling cowardly and unworthy. He asks Asata's feelings, and Asata says he must join the war to save people from the enemy. Kazumi asks if he's scared, he admits, but decides to save the people. King Lin today to let them know that war is at the door. Asata shares his anxiety and fear about the battle with Kazumi. Feeling cowardly, he asks Kazumi's thoughts, who feels he must join the war to save lives. Asata admits he's scared but determined to save people. Kazumi questions Asata's certainty, noting his accidental arrival. Asata acknowledges this but says his experiences have changed him. Suzumi teases Kazumi, but he acknowledges her concern. In the morning, the king declares war, announcing the Monster King's army is approaching and encourages the soldiers and boosts morale. Kazumi says to him, "Are you sure about that? You actually came to this world by mistake." Asata agrees that the way he came to this world is indeed troubling, but many things have happened in his life since then that have completely changed him. Kazumi encourages himself, bids farewell to Asata, and heads back to the castle. Suddenly, Suzumi appears and tries to tease Asata as usual, but he reacts normally and says, "I knew you were here from the start. You seemed worried about Kazumi, so you came here." They joke around a bit, and then she bids farewell to Asata and heads back to the castle. In the morning, the king announces a state of war and that the Monster King's army is approaching the kingdom to invade it. The king continues to encourage the soldiers and prepares the citizens' morale to keep the situation stable in the country. The scene shifts to Orja and Uro as they are moving their belongings to the rescue house, and they are being helped by Asata. But they inform Tong that the leader wants him in her office, which makes the priest very anxious. He asks about the reason, and then Rose hands him the team's uniform, and she gives him advice on the battlefield. He must care for himself. She outlines the battle plan. Initially, they wait for the injured to come from the back. At the battle's peak, they advance to the front lines. At the beginning, they will wait for the injured to come to them from the back through Tong and the friends. Then, at the height of the battle, he and she will advance to the front lines. The next morning, the rescue team prepares with the troop train that sets off for the battlefield. We notice that Oro and Orga are nervous. The priest asks Rose about the monsters. She says they look human with horns. Rose asks, "Scared?" He knows someone scarier. They are similar to humans but with horns. Rose asks him, "Are you scared?" He knows someone scarier. The scene shifts to the first war 5 years ago. Rose asks, "Are you scared?" The first war between Linga and the Monster King. Monsters are at the kingdom's borders. It shifts to the first war between the kingdom of Linga and the Monster King. Everyone is gathered in the king's chamber, and he tells them that a report has arrived indicating that monsters have appeared at the borders of the kingdom in the Greenland, and the king explains the situation to his leaders, among whom was Rose at that time. Sigilus and Rose leave the meeting. Sigilus asks about the strange monster movements. Rose suspects an invasion. Sigilus plans to ready soldiers for war. Rose ponders her next move. A soldier bothers her, and Rose hits her to stop the distraction. The soldier questions the situation's seriousness. Rose warns her not to eavesdrop, a scenario that could happen, and Rose keeps thinking to herself about what she should do. A soldier from her team comes up and starts nagging her, but Rose ignores her and then hits her to make her stop because she can't think. The soldier asks her about the seriousness of the situation, saying that no one expected the monsters to appear at all. Rose hits her again and says, "Don't eavesdrop on the secret meetings again, Bi-san." Then Rose goes back home with the soldier. And there is her special squad of soldiers. They welcome her, but the commander tells them that she will personally oversee their training today, which makes everyone upset. The soldier says, and they ask her what made the commander so angry. And we learn that she is Rose's deputy in the team. Rose is tasked by the king to investigate border issues and monster movements using force if needed. She tells her team to leave for the Dark Forest in the morning, and if necessary, you can resort to force. Rose then returns to the team and informs them of their new mission, which is that they will set off in the morning. The Dark Forest. Soldiers ask Rose about enemy numbers. Rose joins them, excited they set off in the morning. She's good for this mission and that she will go with them this time as well. Everyone is excited that Rose is going with them, thinking that they won't be defeated at all. In the morning, they really set off on the mission and enter. They explore part of the forest, only the western side remains. They divide guard duties. Rose watches first. It's the most dangerous part of the area, and that's why they will leave the horses behind and divide the guard duties among themselves. And Rose is the first to take the watch. But Rose notices that Call can't sleep like the rest of the team, so she asks Rose what's wrong with her. So Call sits with her and asks her why she chose her to be the leader of the team. Rose is surprised by the question and tells Call that she is just like everyone else in the team. And you're not special in any way. So Rose says to her, "Are you trying to tell me that you're not suitable?" For the mission, she thinks about what to say and responds hesitantly. "You trained the unique one yourself to be the best in the kingdom, and since I'm the deputy leader, my role is just to write reports and send requests. I'm just like a mailman, really." Rose tells her, "But you're doing your job excellently. I'm thinking of giving you the title of leader as well. I won't always be responsible for this unit. I'm the leader of the entire battalion." She gets really anxious and refuses to be the leader, preferring to express all her feelings to Rose about everything she experienced, from being an ordinary knight to joining the team, up until this moment. Rose reassures her that she didn't choose her randomly and that she trusts her, seeing her as worthy of the position she placed her in. Rose continues to encourage her, leaves her to keep watch, and goes to sleep. The next day, the team searches the forest, noticing blood trails and footprints. They realize monsters are hunting animals. Suddenly, they spot the Monster King and his forces. Their presence is revealed, leading to a confrontation. Rose asks the king about his mission, but he refuses to answer, and a battle ensues. The Monster King attacks Rose, but she dodges and counters. Surprised by her abilities, the fight continues fiercely. Rose's team excels, but she struggles against the king's cursed sword. Eventually, she overcomes him. The Monster King, seeing his exhausted forces, mocks Rose, claiming there are no real heroes among humans. Rose is taken aback by his words. The king refuses to reveal the mission, and the battle begins. The Monster King attacks Rose, but she dodges and counters. The king is shocked by Rose's abilities. Rose's team excels against the Monster King's army, but she struggles against him after he uses the cursed sword. She overcomes him. The Monster King sees his exhausted forces and mocks Rose, saying there are Rose's team excels in combat against the Monster King's army, but Rose struggles against the Monster King after he uses a cursed sword. She overcomes him. The Monster King notices his exhausted forces and mocks Rose, claiming there are no real heroes among humans. Rose, angered, retorts that they are underestimated. The monster soldiers become fanatics, killing Rose's team. Furious, Rose charges the king but is blinded by his sword. Her team is wiped out, and as the Monster King is about to finish her, he is attacked. The Monster King stands over her, vowing never to forget this battle. Rose angrily tells him, "Do you think lacking heroes means you can defeat us? You've underestimated us." He assures her not to worry, as he disagrees. The monster soldiers become fanatics, killing Rose's team. Rose attacks the king, but he blinds her with his sword. Her magic can't heal her eyes. Her team is gone, and the Monster King is about to finish her, but he's attacked instead. Rose collapses. The Monster King vows to remember this battle. Rose grabs the sword, stands, and pins him to a tree. She's about to kill him when a little girl, her mother, runs to save him. Rose gets furious and charges at the king with all her strength, but he stabs her in the eyes with his sword, blinding her forever. She tries to heal her eyes with her magic, but it's useless because of the cursed magical sword. Unfortunately, Rose's entire team is wiped out, and the Monster King is about to finish her off, but just then he is attacked in place of Rose, and she dies. Rose collapses after losing her entire team, and the Monster King stands before her, telling her that he will never forget this battle for the rest of his life and that he will finish her off for good. So Rose grabs the sword with both hands, stands up, and keeps striking with all her strength, pinning it into the tree with the cursed sword. She is about to kill him when suddenly a little girl, who is her mother, runs to the king, her teacher, to save him and escape with him. Rose is the princess who loves Ole and wants to save her, just like Ole always saved her. She breaks down and tries to save Ole with all her magical power, but it's useless because of her fatal wound, and Ole dies. Rose mourns her team. She reports and resigns, relinquishing her titles. She requests leave and departs. Rose returns home, remains sad about her chivalry and gallantry. She resigns. Rose returns home, sad. A month later, Segelus visits. The curse is gone. Rose keeps the wound as a reminder. After a month, he will come and check on her. He tells her that the curse in her eye wound has lifted. We know Rose keeps it as a reminder of her failure to protect her friend, and she prefers her inability to protect the life of her dearest friend. And she remains. Rose chooses to save lives, Rose saves lives, not revenge. She asks her priest if he's happy. He nervously says, "The world's ending," and she hits him. She decides to spend her life saving people. Rose is talking to her priest, asking if he is happy she found him. The priest gets nervous and Rose tells him, "You don't realize your worth. No healer can be as capable as you from training." The priest says, "The world will end." She makes him see only they can heal like that. "You must never die, understand?" And she makes him understand that no one can reach that level of healing except for him and her. But she keeps praising him a bit, telling him, "You should never die, do you understand?" The next morning, the priest wakes up and gets ready well, and he meets Sazmi, who asks him what he's doing up so early. She tells him that she's taking a walk and asks for his opinion on her new armor. She keeps explaining to him how amazing her armor is and that it enhances her magic. Sazmi is annoyed. Priest calls Kazumi. He doesn't know how to escape from her, so he calls Kazumi for help, and she actually comes and takes him to Captain Segelas because they have been summoned. Captain Segelas informs the two heroes that the Monster King's army will reach the Greenland in half an hour. He encourages the troops, telling them that they must return to the king with good news, which is news of victory. We see all the forces are ready for battle. The Monster King's army begins to appear on the battlefield in very large numbers, and the wizards prepare their magical spells and fire at their enemies with all its ferocity. But everyone is surprised that the army coming towards them is just an illusion and that they do not know where the real army is, and they are surprised that the enemy is coming from the other direction and attacking with all his strength. Rose prepares the rescue team and orders the black team, Tong, Ilk, Mel, Jumal, and Yord, to find any injured people and bring them here quickly, and they really take off at high speed. She orders the gray team to treat the injured from the black team. Oroku protects them, but they should escape if needed. She tells her priest they should fight when the battle intensifies. He protects them, but if danger comes, escape. She tells they should escape quickly, and she tells her priest that he and she from the white team should go out to fight as soon as the battle intensifies. And until that moment, they will help treat the injured here. Tong brings two injured knights to the treatment tent. His assistant treats them quickly as more arrive. He hears a knight mention a giant snake. Attack. On the battlefield, the snake overwhelms the knights. The black knight observes, dismissing humans as weak. A knight attacks him but is injured. As he vanishes, the black knight realizes the kidnapped victims took the injured knight, exciting him as he heads to the battlefield. The treatment tent is full, and Rose tells her assistant they must go to the battlefield. She warns him about the enemy in black armor using dangerous magic. Her assistant recalls a vision and becomes anxious. On the battlefield, a giant snake overpowers the knights. The Black Knight observes. Suddenly, a knight attacks him but gets injured. The knight tries to warn his troops about the Black Knight's power but vanishes. The Black Knight realizes the kidnapped victims took the injured knight and heads to the battlefield. In the treatment tent, Rose tells her assistant it's time to go. She warns him about their enemy's black armor and dangerous magic. Her assistant recalls a troubling vision and grows anxious. Rose advises him to fight when surrounded, directing him right while she goes left. The battle intensifies with widespread death. Her assistant rescues the injured. The Black Knight realizes the kidnapped victims Amala mentioned took the injured knight, so he heads to the battlefield. The treatment tent is crowded, and Rose tells her assistant it's time to go. She warns him about their enemy in black armor using dangerous magic. Her assistant recalls a future vision. Rose advises him to fight and kill when surrounded, instructing him to go right while she goes left. The battle is fierce. Her assistant rescues the injured from enemy forces. Suzumi uses thunder magic to defeat enemies. Suzumi orders injured soldiers to retreat while she and Kazumi advance to eliminate the enemy leader. The Black Knight approaches, and the knights feel intimidated and attack recklessly. Rose gives him important advice, which is that he must fight and kill the enemies while he is surrounded. She tells him to go to the right and he goes to the left. The battle becomes very fierce and there is killing everywhere. His masters begin to save the wounded who are about to die from the enemy forces. The enemy forces are overwhelmed by the strength of Rose and his masters, and they continue to save people. Suzumi uses thunder magic to defeat enemies. Suzumi orders the injured to retreat while she and Kazumi advance to confront the enemy leader. The Black Knight appears, intimidating the knights who attack recklessly. He retaliates with magic, defeating them. Suzumi learns the Black Knight's magic is reverse attack magic, causing him to bleed when he injures others. Kazumi bleeds after wounding the Black Knight. His assistant, worried for Kazumi and Suzumi, continues but falls, saved by a knight with healing magic. They ask Sato about the hero's location and he guides them. Suzumi and Kazumi plan to defeat the knight. Suzumi assures Kazumi that Sato will heal them. Suzumi learns the Black Knight's magic injures him when he harms others. Kazumi bleeds after wounding the Black Knight. His assistant, worried for them, advances on the battlefield. He falls, attacked by a Monster King soldier. He falls again, saved by a knight with healing magic. They ask Sato about the hero's location and he guides the knight. Suzumi and Kazumi plan to defeat the knight but are unsure how. Suzumi shares a risky plan. The Black Knight attacks. They dodge and counter, but he reflects their attack, injuring them. But he falls again due to his lack of focus, and this time he's saved by the knight who rescued Sato earlier with his healing magic. They ask Sato about the location of the heroes, and he quickly guides the knight to their location. The battle is extremely fierce near the heroes, and Suzumi and Kazumi decide to take down the knight quickly, but they don't know how to do it. Suzumi shares her plan with Kazumi, who tells her that it's very dangerous. She reassures him that Sato will definitely heal them with his magic. The Black Knight attacks them, but they dodge his strike and counterattack quickly. However, he reflects their attack back at them, injuring them. So they decided to launch another attack, with Kazumi distracting him, while Suzumi uses the tremor magic to move at incredible speed, circling around him and inflicting a severe injury. She thinks she has succeeded in defeating him, but it turns out to be a trick, and he reverses the attack, severely injuring Suzumi in the process. Kazumi also gets hurt and loses consciousness. The Black Knight tells them that all of this was a deliberate deception from the start, and that no one in the world can ever injure him. Suzumi is exhausted, she loses consciousness, and the Black Knight is about to kill her. Osato appears, striking the Black Knight. He finds Suzumi injured and heals her. Osato escapes with Suzumi. The thought of building a new life with a new identity crosses her mind. She loses consciousness and the Black Knight is about to kill her. Osato appears, striking the Black Knight. He finds Suzumi and Kazumi injured and heals them. The Black Knight gets angrier. He attacks Osato, who escapes with Suzumi and Kazumi. Suzumi strikes the soldiers. Osato reassures Suzumi about Kazumi. She tries to explain the Black Knight's abilities, but he attacks. Osato dodges and confronts the Black Knight. The Knight tells Osato he will never allow him to escape. The Black Knight is angered by Osato's attack. Osato is puzzled by his ability to injure the Knight. Osato escapes with Suzumi and Kazumi. Osato reassures Suzumi about Kazumi's healing. The Knight attacks with a spear. Osato dodges and confronts the Knight. The battle is fierce. Osato dodges attacks and injures the Knight. Kazumi wakes, healed, and learns Osato saved them. Osato reassures Suzumi about Kazumi, saying that his injury is almost healed and he will regain consciousness soon. He tries to explain to Suzumi the dangerous abilities of the Black Knight, but the Knight attacks them with his spear. Osato quickly dodges the attack and is forced to confront the Black Knight to get rid of him and continue his mission of saving the injured. The Knight approaches them and tells Osato that he will never allow him to escape. Osato uses healing magic on himself and confronts the Black Knight. The battle begins fiercely, with Osato dodging the Knight's attacks and injuring him without being affected by reversal magic. He strikes the Black Knight and Suzumi is amazed by Osato's prowess. Kazumi wakes up, surprised to be alive and healed, and tells Suzumi that Osato saved them. The Black Knight injures Osato's arm, but it heals instantly. Osato continues attacking and Kazumi notices Osato's healing magic around him. Suzumi explains that Osato's attacks heal the enemy, and the Knight's injuries are from Osato's strength. The battle rages on, with the Dark Knight growing angrier and using all his power against Osato. We see the Black Knight severely injure Osato's arm, but the wound heals within seconds as if it never happened. The Black Knight is astonished, and even Osato is confused about what is happening. We understand that the reversal magic does not work against Osato's healing magic. Osato continues to attack the Knight, and Kazumi is surprised to see that Osato's healing magic surrounds his body at all times. Suzumi explains to him that Osato is attacking the Dark Knight with healing magic, which means that every attack from Osato on the enemy is actually healing him. All the injuries on the Knight are a result of Osato's physical strength. The battle continues fiercely between Osato and the Dark Knight, who gets angrier and uses all his power to attack Osato. And all these injuries on the Knight are a result of Osato's physical strength. The battle continues fiercely between Osato and the Dark Knight, who gets angrier and uses all his power to attack Osato. Kasato decides to use his finishing move and targets the two of them. They attacked each other fiercely, but Kasato's punch overcomes the Black Knight's defense and defeats him soundly. And the black armor disappears from the Knight, revealing that she is a girl in the end, and then she leaves. Kasato heals the remaining injured Knights. And we learn that the entire Monster King's army has fled, and they thank the Knights. They were forced to save them, eliminate the Black Knight, and even capture him. Kazumi arrives and informs them that only the giant snake is left to take down quickly. He informs them that there's only the giant snake left that they need to take down quickly, so the team moves swiftly, along with Kasato. He's going with them, but Rose stops him and makes him explain what happened in the battle, telling him that they quickly step back so they don't get in the way. The troops advance, and he informs his cousins Suzumi and Kazumi he will return with Captain Rose to the healing tent and is relying on them to take down the giant snake, and Kasato quickly returns with the captain to the tent. And indeed, the news reached Amila, the leader of the Monster King's army, who is shocked by the kingdom's forces capturing the Black Knight, and she is informed. The soldier says that the Black Knight suffered a terrible defeat at the hands of one of the rescue team members who is wearing white, which makes Amila even angrier. Rose asks who defeated him, and the soldier replies that the one who defeated the Black Knight is a new young man. His hair is black, making Amila more anxious of another superhuman Rose. She orders a quick withdrawal as the monster doctor commands the snake to retreat. The giant snake is retreating. Suzumi and Kazumi are killing him, and they also took him down with Suzumi's thunder magic, while Kasato continues to treat the injured in the healing tent. Tunj keeps bringing in injured people. Kasato continues treating the injured. Rose tells Kasato that without him, the heroes would have died. Kasato responds that she would have done the same. Without him, things would have been different. The royal army lost the battle, and Kasato responds to her that if he hadn't been there, she would have done the same thing he did. And you would have saved the situation. Rose says he is more valuable than he thinks. If he hadn't been there, the battle would have ended differently, even with her there. The battle ends like this. Even her presence. And with his presence, Osato remembers all his moments in this world, and he starts to cry, feeling very happy, and then he faints from exhaustion. and he leans on Rose, who tells him, "Well done, Osato." After the battle, Osato returns to the castle and the king rewards everyone for their battlefield achievements, including Osato. Osato is happy for his first reward, and he feels happy because it's the first time someone has rewarded him in his life. He goes to tell Bloren about everything that happened at the ceremony. What happened at the award ceremony is that he comes to you and informs Kasato the king summoned him again to the castle, which surprises Osato, but he goes anyway. On the way to the city, all the villagers gather around him, cheering for him, and he miraculously escapes from the fans. He arrives at the castle and meets the king. The king apologizes for summoning him again, even though he just returned from battle, and asks him to help with an important matter. Osato is surprised and asks him what is required of him, and Sigils explains to him they need him to help them interrogate the Black Knight, who held her. So Osato asks them if she was violent and uncooperative during the interrogation, and Sigils replies that she is cooperative, very much, but they haven't given any useful information yet, and she starts to speak. She occasionally meets Kasata. Suzumi says, "I'll protect you." She jokes, "I'm your shield." Kasata asks, "Is she treated?" They say, "No, she's unconscious." Shocked, Kasata checks her. "You must be hurt. He defeated her." Suzumi says, "Consider me your shield." Kasata recalls the injuries to the Black Knight and asks, "Has anyone treated her?" They reply, "No, she's been unconscious." Kasata rushes to her cell. He asks Sajal to enter the cell, and Sajal agrees. Kasata asks for her hands and she asks, "Are you going to torture me?" Kasata insists, "Just give me your hands." She complies. Kasata is shocked and rushes to the Black Knight's cell. He checks her injuries. "You can crush rocks, so you must be hurt." He asks for her hands. She hesitates. "Are you going to torture me?" He insists. She gives her hands. He heals her. She feels warmth and cries from comfort. Kasata asks Sajal for permission to enter the cell to help the Black Knight, and Sajal allows him to go in. Kasata asks her to give him her hands, and she replies, "Are you going to torture me?" Kasata gets angry with her and says, "Just give me your hands quickly." She gives him her hands, and he starts treating her quickly. At that moment, she feels warmth. The magic of healing and crying from the feeling of comfort and warmth that she had never felt before, and his cruelty returns home. Rose tells Kasata she will train him. She warns of another attack by the Monster King's army. Training is dodging hits, and the upcoming attacks will be fiercer, and there are many things he needs to learn to be ready. So Kasata asks her about the type of training this will be, and she tells him that the training involves taking hits from her while he dodges as much as he can. Kasata is caught and training begins. Rose is strong and he faints. He wakes, realizing it was a nightmare. Surprised to see Rose again, she says, "Let's start again." Kasata rests. He was having a strange nightmare, but he was surprised when she appeared in front of him again and said, "Let's start over," and she blew him up again. Kasata sits down to rest for a bit and then goes to the Black Knight, telling her about what happened to him today. She replies, "You haven't stopped rambling since you got here. What brought you here anyway?" He tells her that he doesn't have training today, which is why he came by, and he asks her what she plans to do with her life moving forward. She replies, "I'm a prisoner here, for God's sake, I can't decide anything," and then says, "Now get out of here." Kasata bids her farewell and leaves. Then the king asks Rose about what they will do with the Black Knight and leaves the matter in her hands. So Rose goes down to the Black Knight, and the knight is surprised to see Rose. She realizes that Rose is Kasata's leader, and Rose tells her that he is right in front of her. One of two choices. The first is that she remains imprisoned here for the rest of her life. The second option is to come under her care and become her subordinate, which shocks the Black Knight. She refuses Rose's offer, but Rose intimidates her with her amazing strength and forcibly takes her with her. They go to where Kasata is training, and she hits him, saying, "Didn't I tell you to rest today?" He replies that he was bored, which is why he continued. He said he was training a bit, and Kasata is surprised to see the Black Knight with Rose. Rose asks her, "What are you doing here?" She replies that from today she will be part of the team and that she will be the messenger for the rescue team. Osato visits Rose to ask about the Black Knight. Rose says the knight is calmer. Osato learns the king plans to ally with neighbors against the Monster King, with Suzumi and Kazumi as messengers. Kasato feels unworthy but is reassured of the king's trust. The next day, Kasato meets Suzumi, ignores her teasing, and chases a fox girl. She needs his help to save her mother, saying he's the only one she trusts. Surprised, Kasato sets her down and she introduces herself as Amako. Osato is shocked to hear he's not fit for the mission, unlike Suzumi and Kazumi, but he's reminded of the king's trust. She tells him to prepare. In the morning, Osato goes to the market, meets Suzumi, who teases him, but he ignores her. He sees the fox girl, who was waiting for him to repay her debt by saving her mother. Suzumi is excited about the girl with fox ears and tail, but they ignore her. The girl trusts only Osato and asks to be put down before talking. She introduces herself as Amako from the fox species. At Osato's house, he assures her they can talk freely. He checks if Suzumi's presence is a problem, but Amako trusts her. Osato asks why she showed him the future, and she explains it was to prevent the hero's deaths. Suzumi is thrilled to see a girl with fox ears and a tail, but they ignore her. The girl trusts Osato, introducing herself as a Mako from the fox species. At Osato's house, he ensures privacy and asks if Suzumi's presence is an issue. Amako reassures him. Osato asks about the future vision, and Amako explains it was to save the heroes. She has future-seeing magic and didn't want to lose him. Osato questions why she didn't seek Orja and Ororo's help. Amako, they visit Osato's house, where he assures her the team is training outside. He asks if Suzumi's presence is an issue. Osato inquires why she showed him the future, and she explains it was to prevent the heroes' deaths. She has magic to see the future and wasn't ready to lose him. Osato asks, so you needed a healer. Why not ask Orja and Ororo? She explains the road to the Monster Kingdom is dangerous, and she came alone to find a healer for her mother. He asks, why not tell Rose? She's stronger. She feared Rose would refuse. Suzumi adds Rose would refuse due to her responsibilities. Osato agrees to help Amako and plans to convince the king and captain to let him go to the Monster Kingdom. Osato asks why she didn't seek Orja and Ororo's help. She explains the road to the Monster Kingdom is too dangerous, so she came alone to find a healer for her sick mother. Osato then asks why she didn't tell Rose. She feared Rose would refuse. Suzumi confirms Rose would refuse. Osato agrees to help Amako and plans to convince the king and captain to let him go to the Monster Kingdom while delivering letters. He asks Amako to wait and informs Rose. Rose is shocked by Amako's foresight and insists the king must know. She promises to present the request to the king. Osato explains this to Amako, who thanks him and returns home. Suzumi says Rose will refuse because her role requires handling tasks she can't abandon. Osato agrees to Amako's request, promising to convince the king and captain to let him visit the Monster Kingdom to heal her mother while delivering letters. He asks Amako for permission to wait and informs Rose of Amako's message. Rose is amazed by Amako's foresight and warns that the king must know this secret quickly, as it could affect any country. Rose is amazed by Amako's foresight and tells him this grave secret could shape nations. She will present the request to the king. He explains to Amako, who thanks him and returns home. The team gathers for dinner. The Black Knight is tense. Osato urges her to eat to avoid fainting during training. He gives her a notebook to write about her day, just like Rose did with him. The knight is pleased. As evening falls, the whole team gathers for dinner, but the Black Knight is tense and doesn't eat. Osato comes over and encourages her to eat so she doesn't faint during training tomorrow. He gives her a notebook to write about her day and everything she feels, just like Rose did with him. The knight is very happy, and she eats all her food quickly, and the days pass as the knight trains every day under Rose's supervision. Asato runs with them one day, and the knight discovers that Asato is not an ordinary human but a supernatural being. However, he disappears for several days, and she starts to watch him. She sees Rose training him and the dragon training each other like crazy. She says that they are both monsters, not humans at all, and she keeps watching the fight between them. Asato finally manages to dodge Rose's attack, but then he gets distracted and Asato is happy and flies with joy. Rose tells the knight to train under Asato, then they rest. Asato asks the knight's name and she says it's Film. She's happy because it's the first time someone asked her name. They train, but Film feels embarrassed, uses all her strength and faints. In the evening they have dinner, and Rose asks about Film. Asato says she got tired from training but he treated her. He says she can eat later, and Asato jokes with He tells her to eat later. Rose gets angry, and they eat in silence. Asato meets Rose to discuss delivering letters and meeting the king. Film overhears. In the morning, Film sneaks to the forest. Asato and Amako meet the king. Asato chooses 2 knights, including Orko. Film overhears a conversation at the office. In the morning, she sneaks out to the forest. Asato and Amako meet the king, who thanks her for helping Asato learn about the future. The king approves Asato's journey with Amako to deliver letters, ensuring their travel route is suitable. They will visit Lokovist, Mialark, and Agnes the Monsters. Suzumi, Kazumi, and knights will accompany them, but separate on the way to Agnes the Monsters. Asato chooses 2 knights, including his friend Orko, to join him. Meanwhile, Film escapes into the forest, chased by Rose, who catches her. Rose asks why she ran away, and Film explains her worry about Asato's journey. They accompany Wellesley to discuss their journey route. The first town is Lokovist, followed by Mialark, and then Agnes the Monsters. Suzumi, Kazumi, and the knights join them, but will part ways before Agnes. The king lets Asato choose 2 knights. He picks Orko, and they celebrate. Meanwhile, Film escapes into the forest, chased by Rose, who catches her. Film fled home, worried about Asato's solo journey, planning to join him secretly. Rose returns her home. Asato bids farewell to Film and Rose, who advises him to stay safe and ignore those who mock his healing magic. He says goodbye to his friends and begins his journey. And you know the one who ran away from home to find his teacher on his way to the same trip. And you know the one who ran away from home to find his teacher on his way to the same trip. And you know the one who ran away from home to find his teacher on his way to the same trip. She was going to hide in the forest to go with her, so Rose takes her and returns with her to the house. And Kasata comes to bid farewell to his movie Rose. And Rose tells him to take good care of himself and never die. And she tells him that he will meet many types of people who mock him using healing magic. So if he meets one of them, he will blow him up. And this is the right thing to do, because it is wrong to judge a person without knowing him completely. And Kasata bids farewell to the rest of his friends and sets off on his journey. And that's it. That was the end of Osato's story. I hope you liked it, and before you close, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell to receive all the new videos. That's it. Goodbye.